Good morning to all the dignitaries and participants. I wish you a very happy new year to all the people joined here. I, CA Bhavi Thakkar, on behalf of the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee, ICAI, welcome all the participants in today's webcast, The Art of Storyboarding, Turning Complex Data into Compelling Business Narrations. I welcome today's resource person, CA Gaurav Goyal ji, and all other presents over here. Welcome, Gaurav sir. It's nice to see you again on this platform where we are webcasting us on a very important topic. You know, the storyboarding is something like that we call as visuals which are coming before the major production comes up. A visual is being directed. So, sir, here you are more like a director telling us a story of how the complex data which we have can be combined together to form a very important business narratives. I would like to give a small introduction of CA Gaurav Goyalji. He is an accomplished audit and risk management professional with more than a decade of experience in internal audits, internal controls, and compliance functions across the counseling before the medtech industries. He had worked with the leading organizations such as KPMG, Nokia, Stryker, where he has led the global engagements and managed multi regional teams, strengthening governance, process efficiency, and control frameworks. Gaurav ji is also an author for Amazon's bestseller, Digging the Well. Well, your path to the success in internal audit. A practical guide widely appreciated by the finance and the audit professionals for its real world insights and structural approach. He is passionate about developing the next generation of auditors, enabling professionals to build meaningful and value driven networks. And we have today a right director, CA Gaurav Goyalji, who could direct us for an important thing that we have got lots of data around us, but we don't know how to manage this complex data into a meaningful picture. So, sir, I welcome you on board. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that kind introduction and introducing today's topic. Um, Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. Wish you all a very happy new year and really glad that you joined today on New Year's uh, Eve and you've chosen to upskill yourselves on today's topic, like Bhavi ma'am mentioned, um, is a really important one, especially for people like us, for chartered accountants who are exceptionally good, who do exceptionally well with data when it comes to numbers. We have a very great grip on it, but then how we can leverage that understanding of numbers and convert that data into narratives which force or which influence decisions and which can lead to meaningful outcome. So that is going to be the broad theme of what we are going to discuss today: the art of storyboarding, turning complex data into compelling business narratives. So, Bhavi ma'am has already covered my introduction. I am a CA and certified internal auditor by qualification, have around 10 years of experience uh, in governance, risk, and compliance. And this is the book, Dig in the uh, which I have written last year. And if somebody is interested in internal audit or wants to understand how different processes in a entity work, and what sort of controls should be there, what sort of risks are there, how to mitigate, how to identify those, then it is a good read for all of you. Uh, you can go and have a look at the book. Okay, jumping on to today's agenda. So we'll be covering story framework. So I've tried to um, put a framework around what we are going to discuss today so that you can easily recall it later on. So it's called story. So it's an acronym, and we'll cover that in detail in the upcoming session. And We'll be deep diving into the elements, what are the challenges in data-driven decision making, why good data fails, what sort of visual discipline should we maintain in data storytelling, relevant scenarios for finance people, and common failures, professional upgrade that we need to make able to uh, to be able to utilize storyboarding as a tool, as a technique. Okay, we will jump onto the story elements. You are seeing an acronym, the words letters highlighted in green. So STORY, which becomes story, and then there's entire session, today's session, which in which we will be covering what every element means. But let's firstly understand why why it matters, right? You might have noticed, or we find something, we did a data crunching, and then we present the outcome to the manager or to your senior or to your client, and then you were expecting a far better response from them given the kind of hard work you've put in arriving at to that data or that information, but you don't get the similar kind of response or outcome that you wanted to achieve. uh, and then it makes us question that whether was it worth it spending so much of efforts and time on this topic. But the problem is not in what you have prepared. The real problem lies with the fact that how we have presented that situation. Everybody might have noticed the attention span is very small. Even when you look at Instagram or things like that, anything that doesn't interest you within, let's say, 30 seconds or 10 seconds, then you move on to another thing. You don't want to spend more time there. Attention span is very less. And then we go, and while we take time to set the context, what we want to say, why we want to say, we lose the person's attention. Secondly, there might be things which are of interest to you. You might say that these are the new regulations, this is what we need to do, there is going to be a penalty. uh, but we must be cautious about what is interesting or what is relevant for your audience. So everybody will ask you, what is in it for me? Why should I hear you? So we should be very clear about what is in it for them to be able to make them grab their attention, right? So that is why we are going to cover today's session and explore how we can utilize stories to be able to communicate better. Now, all of you must be, I mean, any movie, let's say Dhurandhar, which recently came in, it was around 3.5 hours, 4 hours long movie. But if I would ask you what the story was from the movie, then you would you might be able to narrate it from end to end, from beginning till the very end. Even you might be able to share predictions that what is going to happen in March 26 when the second part will release, and what is your say about it, right? Why? Because it interested us so much, and the way it presented, it evoked emotions in us. Emotions could be good, could be bad. You might have felt disgust because of the violence. You might have felt entertained because of the dance, music, and story. Um, or you might have been felt intrigued about all the revelations which were there in the movie, but uh, it made you glued, and as an outcome, you are able to recall the entire story end to end. However, if somebody asks you after 2 p.m. what happened in today's session, you might not be able to recall what happened from the beginning till the very end. Why? Because those elements, w- with the music, story, that hook line, all that might not essentially be there. This could be the same for the critical presentations that you take. In those presentations, it's not necessary that the person who is listening to you is able to absorb, is able to grasp whatever you are saying. And then there are different elements which are missing, because of which you are not able to gather attention and then retain attention of the person. So let's move on to story framework, and we'll keep on continue to come back to our examples to be able to understand better. Now, S means situation at stake. Provide context and explain why leadership must address the issue now for effective decision making. We might do hundreds of data analytics that why this matters, why a decision is required now. That sense of urgency should be there, and you should be able to provide context. Then T means tension and truth. So highlight the data backed conflict. What is the problem that require immediate attention and decision? So firstly, we are explaining that this is what has happened and this issue why it matters. Then we are going to explain that what has actually happened and uh, why that conflict or that situation is requiring a decision. Then options and outcomes. Everybody loves options. When you go for a shopping, uh, if I mean, let's say the very article you are going to purchase, if we are talking about you went out to purchase a t-shirt, the very t-shirt that you knew or you end up, you might not be convinced or you might haven't bought that t-shirt. Why? Because you were not aware about what all options you have. So providing options is important, but at the same time they should not be there for the sake of it. They should be credible solution with quantified implication. What implication will it have, so that the leadership choice could be informed. Then recommendation and risk. So typically what we do is we just present what it is and we say, okay, this has happened, this is going to be, this is the risk, and if we don't do it, then this is the outcome, right? But then the management or leadership is also expecting that what is your recommendation? What do you prefer? Why do you think that this is the best option? And you also acknowledge that, okay, if we take this, then these risks are there, but we are okay to accept these risks because this position or this option is better than the other ones. Then your ask and next moves. So sometimes when this happened with me, I used to drop in emails providing some status update during audits, or emails to my seniors, and then just send it. But once I heard back from a senior and he asked me, okay, you have sent this, this is good for information, but what do you want from me? What is your ask? What do you want as my next move? Because there is no clear call to action in the email, then it is very difficult, and the result that we are expecting out of that email would be ambiguous. And this is a very common mistake that we all make. We present the situation, we present what the risks are there, but we at times or mostly fail to mention that what is our ask, what do we want the management, the leadership to do with the data that we have presented. What is our next move? You might prepare 100 different dashboards and say, okay, now you can slice and dice data. You can see, let's say, sales. So you can see monthly view, quarterly view, yearly view. You can see customer-wise sales, region-wise sales, product-wise sales. But then that is great. Uh, it is a great tool which I can leverage to take decisions. But what insights have you came out with? And basis those insights, what are your recommendations? What do you want the management to do? That is equally important, and that is almost always. invisible or missing in our presentations. So we should be very cautious about what is our call to action, CTA. Okay. Uh, then about stories. So you should be, when we mention this, we should try and put it in context. We should try and find some real life instances which can help us tell that what is going to be the impact. Now, the stories that you have heard that have shaken you might not uh, during the days. I don't know how many of you might be aware. There was a kid, his name I still recall, is Prince, and he fell into a bore well. Okay, and there was a nationwide national TV coverage, news coverage on his rescue, and it went on till 36 hours or 48 hours. Everybody in the country was praying for the safety of that kid, uh, 5 year old or so, and then everybody was glued to their television wanting to know what has happened. However, if you look at this objectively, because there was an emotional appeal, because everybody was glued to it, they could sense that, okay, there is a person, there's a human involved, it's not just data. Then that sense of attachment comes in. You see his pictures, his parents sharing his pictures, how he looks, where he studies, what he does, his neighbors talking about him, then that makes you attached to that person. However, if had it been a presentation or one slide saying that every year 1000 children fall into borewell which are not closed properly, and then out of that, even if it is mentioned that let's say 50 of them die, then it is just a number for you or for anybody who is watching. There's no story, there's no emotional appeal, and that wouldn't have been able to capture as much attention as that instance did. And they were making sure that all the open bore wells which are there, they are closed properly so that no prince falls into those bore wells in the future. So these kind of stories, uh, there was another very unfortunate incident which happened in Delhi. Uh, 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 and it was called as Nirbhaya case, Nirbhaya rape case. And it is not the scenario that these things uh, have happened for the first time in the country. But firstly, the sheer brutality, uh, and how it happened, it shook the entire nation. And then again, people were able to empathize, people were able to relate with that girl. And because of that, it mobilized masses for candle marches, asking for stricter laws. And it's not the case that such things haven't happened in the past. But here, it captured people's attention. Why? Because there was a story linked to it. Now, if we come to very recent instance in Bangladesh, where minorities are getting targeted and are getting hurt, right? If it comes to you as a number or as a generic statement, all eyes on Bangladesh, minorities in Bangladesh are in danger, they are getting constant threats, then there's no story, and there's no person, there are no emotions involved. There you just think, okay, there's a neighbor, there are people there, and they are in trouble. We should do something about it, but it will not evoke the same emotion. But I think he was Mr. Deep. He was in Bangladesh, and police handed over him to the mob, which finally killed him, and that shook me like anything. And I actually felt that how real is this? I mean, we hear about riots every now and then, conflicts, wars, but when you actually see one single story that shakes us like anything, and not just story, even photographs. I mean, we see people migrating because of conflicts, because of war from one country to another, and there was a award-winning photograph wherein a kid, malnourished kid who was lying uh, on the banks of sea or on beach, and that was such a sad picture, and that made, I mean, that out created a outrage that and made people realize that what are the impacts of war. So the the bottom line here is the emotion, how you are able to. So you might have heard that there are two sections of brain. One is objective and other one is emotional. So the moment you invoke that emotional side of the brain through stories, through pictures, then that is the time when you are able to create maximum impact. In our case, we can always, I mean, in CSR, if you might have came across, they do not say that we need this much fund and these many students education we will fund. They would typically bring the story of a kid who, and they'll show you his success story, and then you will feel much more invested, and you would want to donate for that cause. Why? Because there you could see that what the outcome is. In the industry where I am working now, in the medtech industry, uh, just to make sure that the people actually relate to the vision and mission of the organization, every quarter we see a patient story. We see how company products have really impacted their lives, how their recovery was much faster, how the doctors were able to treat a disease which was uh, very difficult, and then recovery was much faster, and the person was able to go back to his family, spend time with them, was able to walk much faster. So these kind of things actually invoke emotion, and emotion is something which will make you do, or which will make you take the next steps. At times we go very indirect and unemotional even when we write, right? If you look at the screen, there is no emotion. I mean, the way it is written, uh, it is just providing facts. These are not even proper sentences. We do not write in the first instance, what do we call it? First person. We don't write in first person. What we say, we prefer to write in third person, so that I'm avoiding saying I, me, am, we. So these words we are avoiding. Why? Because we want to stay objective. We want to sound more like how a computer would sound. But then that is not going to invoke any emotions, right? If in a conversation you are only talking about this is the data A, B, C, and these are the risks X, Y, Z, and that is all that you have, then you are not essentially projecting the real risk, and you will not be able to get the similar kind of response that you are expecting. Let's deep dive into these elements one by one. Situation and stake, defining the situation. Understand the current context and background is crucial for setting the stage for further discussion. So you need to be able to explain the context and background in a very clear and very simplified language. Okay, I'll give you one example from internal audit also. What we used to do is we used to spend 5 hours or 6 hours in writing an observation if it is a very major one, right? And if it is very difficult to set the context, we would write an overview or background about that observation, would spend hours on it, and then maybe a one pager or two pager observation comes up. And while sharing, the common mistake that I used to make, I noticed about myself is I was reading what is written on the screen. Now, anybody can read what I am presenting on the screen. If I'm just simply reading from there, I won't be able to connect with the audience. So what I did, I spent some time in reading what I have written, understanding what I actually want to say, and then the moment I press it, I go back into conversational tone. So now, even when I am presenting, I am having a conversation with the audience. So I'm saying, okay, let me tell you what happened. So there was this scenario, this agreement was there were revenue leakage. So I'm explaining everything step by step, but in my own language, in a conversational tone. I'm not reading what is written on the screen because that is written to make things concise, right? We are not writing and so that people, if somebody reads it in the future, they are also able to understand it better. But given I have the opportunity to present it, I should be presenting it in how I would narrate that what has actually happened. Uh, so then I'm simply explaining what the observation or what the issue is in my own words rather than reading what is on the screen. And that is helping in setting the context even better, identifying the stakes, clarifying what is at risk or what is to be gained, which help prioritize actions and focus efforts effectively. Now, if I say, okay, this is what has happened, and that's it, then people won't be able to appreciate the magnitude of it, right? I need to be able to tell them that what is the risk if this goes ahead. And at times, people are not able to understand that risk on their own. It is our job to be able to help them understand the risk or the opportunity as well, what is coming out of it. So, explaining firstly, before we deep dive into storytelling and everything, your own understanding of the topic is the most essential element. So, firstly, you should be able to clearly understand and articulate in your own words that what the situation is, what the risks are, what the proposed action is, right? What the stakes are. So, it should be very clear for you, firstly. And once it is clear, you should be able to frame it in your own words, right? So, once you have that kind of uh, mindset or once you have that kind of clarity, you would be able to explain it very clearly that what the problem is. And cherry on the cake is if you can tie it back with uh, some story that, okay, let me tell you a story. What happened? Uh, uh, there was a agreement which was supposed to be shared. There were pressures on Mr. A, and then he had to go ahead and sign, otherwise he wouldn't receive the incentive for that year. Because of that, he took certain steps, he overlooked this and that, and then this happened. Now it could become accusatory. So if you are presenting it from audit perspective, so we would avoid that, but we would at least try and present it in as much as the first person as possible, and also bringing in the emotional elements into it, right? Identify that what is the risk, what we have lost. That thing should clearly come out in the front, or what is there to gain. Tension and truth. Uh, Tension represent conflict, pressure, or opposing force that challenge stability. And so you are basically firstly understanding that what is the tension, what is the conflict. Because in a movie, typically what you see, firstly, they set some background that this is what has happened, or they tell you a bit about that person. Then they tell you, okay, things, if we typically look at a love story. So what happens? They'll introduce you about the uh, boy and girl, right? Then they'll show you how they fell in love, but it's a relatively simpler story, right? Then you need to bring in the tension element. So for that, either the parents don't agree or there's some communal element, the castes are not matching, or some sort of tension comes in, right? So that essentially is basically avoiding us to be in a straight line. So that is creating peaks and troughs, right? Valleys and peaks. So we are able to, okay, now this is the rock bottom where the relationship has hit, or the movie has hit, and there's an emotional tension there. And then when things improve from there, when there's a recovery, then that provides us dopamine, right? So this tension or this trough or valley is very important to be able to appreciate the normal and the high as well. So this tension helps us understand that what is the conflict, what is the pressure, what is the opposing force, right? Embracing truth. Truth stands for honesty, clarity, and transparency, essential for resolving conflict. Here, you should not sugarcoat. If something is bad, you should be in a position to say, yes, it is bad. And if we go ahead, this is what can happen, because that will help you capture immediate attention. I am not saying that you should sensationalize topics, but at the same time, you should be embracing truth. You should be very clearly articulating that what would happen if things are not addressed in a timely manner, or what is the opportunity that could have been missed. If somebody tells you that this is uh, uh, if we don't increase take the price increase, then we might not be able to sustain the entity over the next 3 years, so we'll have to take it, or else there are 100 people are going to be jobless because we don't take a price increase today. Now this tension, this emotional appeal you have added uh, into your pitch. Options and outcomes. Understand option, explore various available option. You need to tell them that what all options are there so that they are informed and they can take the decisions accordingly. Evaluate, if we take option one, what will happen? If we take option two, what will happen? What are going to be the effects? And then plan for success. So people, there's a term which is called um, pragmatism, optimistic pragmatism. So I am an optimistic person about the future, but at the same time, I am pragmatic and I want to be cautious about what all can go wrong. And I take steps, whatever are in my power, to address that, right? So you explore all the options, you share all the options, and what are the outcomes using different options, so that decision making could be informed. And remember, we discussed that the options should be meaningful also, otherwise you lose credibility if you just present options for the sake of it. Recommendation, risk, and rationale. Now, given you are a subject matter expert, you should be in a position to recommend. Okay, uh, this is what I recommend. This is why I recommend this, right? So that the decision making is very clear, right? You identify risk. Okay, even if I am saying that this option is the best one, these all things can go wrong. And this is what we need to do to mitigate these issues so that we ensure the success. It could not be the case that the option that you are proposing um, would be, even though it is the best one, it cannot ensure that everything will go the way you plan it to go. You should always highlight, or you should study that what all can go wrong and how we can address that with every option that we go with. Supporting your rationale, offer strong rationale to justify what your recommendation is. And that rationale will enhance your stakeholders' confidence. They will be able to appreciate that your recommendations are backed by and your insights. And final thing is your ask or your next move. You should be able to clarify what do you want out of it. What is your ask? So your call to action should be very clear. Define clearly your request to ensure there's alignment and understanding. And then outline next steps. Okay, as a way forward, what are we going to do? Detail the upcoming actions so that there is momentum. You can say, okay, I will be sending the minutes of meeting, and this is what we have agreed to. Different functions are supposed to do this and that, and basis that we will be proceeding, and I will be scheduling check-in meetings, and this is the date we are targeting. So those kind of next steps you should be outlining. So a quick recap to story, so that because this is the framework that we are going to carry forward. So situation and stakes. Uh, even if you see um, what like we were discussing about movies, so they explain the situation first, right? What is the situation here? They set the context, they do the groundwork. Then once a base level of understanding is there, then that tension comes in, right? The moment of truth comes in, the problem comes in, which basically uh, puts a big impact on what we how we are perceiving that situation. Then options and outcomes. Then the protagonist is um, facing or seeing different options, that if I do this, this will happen. Protagonist has options. If you remember from movies, we typically see that uh, in romantic movies from older times, uh, the uh, heroine's father would give a blank check to hero, say that, well, put whatever amount you put, and then I ask you to uh, go away from life of my daughter. So those that is the option he gets. What outcome comes out of it, what he select. Mm. And recommendation risk, your ask if and next move is something which we need to incorporate in our professional life. But this valley and peak is something which we need to incorporate when telling a story. A story could be even a 30-second story or a 1 minute story. You could tell something that has happened, or that you could relate to, so that uh, it can bring back people's attention. Like if I am if I have seen, let's say there is a product launch planned, and people are saying that we are going to do this, that, and you want to make an impact. So you can always tell that, okay, I was part of another product launch in the past in my previous company, and this is what has happened because of XYZ reason. We were preparing, we were all set up for success. Then this we hit the bottom because of this reason. This is the problem that came up, and how we came out of that problem. So this story will then bring all the attention to what you are saying. You could have simply said this also, that okay, in my past experience, if we take this route, we will face this problem. But if you tell them that in previous company, this is what has happened. People set the context, right? We were sitting in we were sitting in our Gurgaon head office till 4 a.m., correcting the things, making sure it happens the right way on the very next date, and we want to avoid it. Now that imagery or that emotional side of the brain you have activated. So uh, pictures, stories, even visual images. So you should think about how you can bring in those elements. When I tell you about certain stories, you might be able to create some image in your mind, so that you are able to relate better. Which is why we love fictional books also, right? Because we are able to create a world of our own, and stay there. And those fictional stories have a much bigger impact on us than the non-fiction. Okay, what all challenges are there in data-driven decision making? Data quality is not the problem. Data is technical accuracy of data is usually sound, and it is not the main issue causing problems. Which is why I said in the beginning, us being chartered accountants, data quality is going to be the last of our problems, right? Because that is our bread and butter. That is what we do day in day out. Decision delays from poor sequencing. Uh, why at times we are not able to capture clients' attention or management's attention, leadership's attention, and then decisions stall because the insights are presented in a unorganized or poorly sequenced manner. We spend a lot of time in doing the working, but we don't spend even half of the time in making sure how we are going to present it. Maybe some people are a bit finicky about how their presentations look, so they might spend time uh, in polishing the presentation as well, but then they haven't made up their mind in as to how they are going to present it in front of the audience. My slide says something, but how am I going to portray that, picture that, put that picture in front of my audience? So you need to spend reasonable time on how you are going to present. So your both your presentation as well as you should be planning that how you are going to deliver that presentation. Using this framework, it optimizes how insights are consumed and it will help decision move forward efficiently. Why? Because you have given options, you have given your recommendation, you have shared your ask, what do you want the management to do? You have shared the context in the beginning that what does it mean, and you've shared the background, and also you shared the situation, why it matters, and why the decision is needed now. And even just as an example, why I chose this acronym, right? I could have given a linear presentation. Why I chose this acronym? Because I want to activate that, okay, what we talked about storyboarding. So the acronym is also related. It's called story. And now you are able to connect back and recall in the future that, okay, if I am presenting something, maybe I should use story and I can use story framework. Okay, let's have a look at a few examples of this story framework in action. Okay, now on the left hand side, you somebody has created a days in sales outstanding or working capital related dashboard. It is showing you trend customers who have delayed collections, right? There is no escalation or no consequence. It's a beautiful dashboard which is presenting what how the data looks like, right? And this is typically what we do. We create fancy dashboards so that people are able to slice and dice data and understand that data. But if we look at it from story framework, how would it be presented differently? So firstly, I am explaining situation and stake. DSO spike is driven by our top five customers, right? These are the top five customers who are driving the DSO stake. Then what was T was tension and truth, right? Now let's bring in the element of tension to this DSO. So the moment of truth. Sales incentives are misaligned to collections. Why this DSO spike has happened? Because election. People are more inclined towards selling, but collection is not their problem. And because collection is not their problem, we are seeing a spike in days in sales outstanding. People are not paying, and our sales team is just focused upon selling, and their focus is not there on recovering the money. So this tension element has came in. Now, what are options and outcomes are there? We say that change KPI, tighten credit for customers who are not paying in time, or should we stay status quo? I am providing three options that either you change the KPI, you make incentives aligned to collections, you tighten the credit for customer, or you stay as it is. Now, also along with this option, I will share outcome. If we change KPI, then maybe our sales might go down, but then in the long run, it will be good for the business, right? If we tighten credit, immediately, again, it will have an impact on the sales, but that at the same time might not result in any significant impact on the collections. Or if we stay how we are doing the business, then some time would come wherein our working capital would be too burdensome. So I have shared what all options are there, what is the outcome. Then what is my recommendation? My recommendation is that you align incentives with collection, right? That is my recommendation based on what we have discussed till now. And then finally, what is your ask? What is my ask? Approve the KPI revision, change the KPI and approve it. That going forward, the incentives, sales incentives would also be linked with collection. So now, if I present it in this way, I can always say, okay, this is the dashboard. And when I looked at it, this is what I have found out. So this was now this dashboard that we were presenting in the first instance stays as a mere groundwork, which is helping you drive insights. But what have you done with those insights really matters to the management. So these examples I've tried to keep which are relevant finance to me. Now, margin analysis. If you look at margins, you shared, okay, quarter on quarter, gross margin is down 1.2%. Then you explained region-wise why this variance is there, why it's higher in north, lower in west, lower in east and south as well. So you've explained region-wise variance. You've all the cost line items, maybe top 10 cost line items, you've explained, you've justified that why this has happened, whether it will happen in the future or not. And then you say, okay, let's continue to monitor the cost uh, and let's continue to monitor the margins. Was that fruitful? Maybe to some extent. But how about we use the story framework here? Now, what is the situation? We say that margin is eroded, but why has it eroded? Because there was an discount expansion. We are giving more discounts now, right? Now, the tension. Everybody is celebrating the volume growth, but it is hidden behind the structural leakage, which is the margin. So, this volume growth that has came in is at the back of reduced margins. So, it is not healthy for the profitability. The margins have eroded. It has happened because discounts have increased. Now the tension is we are celebrating the volume growth, but it is hiding behind a structural leakage of margins. Now, what all options I am giving? I'm saying we can reprice the products, we can tighten the discounts, or we can absorb the hit because we want the growth, right? So if I say reprice, then demand might fall. That is the outcome because my price has in if my price increases, then demand might come down. If we tighten discount, again discount might come down. Demand might come down, but we are not sure that whether the impact would be same or not because the discounts that we are given, whether that those are being passed on to the end customers or not, we are not sure about it and whether the customer is okay to take that discount or not, that also we are not, I mean whether the customer is okay to pay more or not, we are not sure. Or do we absorb the hit? Would that make sense financially in the future? So our recommendation we would share is tighten the discount on low margin SKUs. Don't tighten on every SKU, but at least the SKUs where our margins are low, tighten the discount. Here, this is one example that I am giving, but you might do a separate analysis. Maybe you can say that there's an opportunity to reprice for certain uh, high margin or high volume products also. Or maybe there are certain products which are low volume but high margin, and there's an opportunity that even if we increase the price, the demand would not fall much. Based on your analysis, there is a capacity in the customers to pay more. So you can explore that and you can share that. And then finally your ask is approve pricing guardrails revision. If there is a discount beyond this level on these kind of SKUs, etc., then these are the people whose approvals would be required. This is the justification, a clear justification and business case is required before we approve any discount beyond this limit. So these kind of guardrails, then you ask the management to approve. Now, here, if we put things in story framework, it is driving action. It makes people think, it is driving action, and then you are in the driving seat. You are guiding. Like Bhavi ma'am mentioned, you became the director and you are able to orchestrate how things move, right? Let's take another example. Typically, in our, especially in internal audit reports, we talk about control failures or we talk about cost overrun, right? So, in the audit report, you've mentioned what all controls deviations are there. How many instances out of sample have deviated from the expected control? Now, where all cost overruns have happened? What is the reason for that? You've given it a medium risk rating, and you say, okay, the corrective actions we take to the next cycle. Now, if you take it from the story framework mindset, how would you approach that? You would go to the management and say that, however, this is medium risk, these deviations are repeated. And as the business scale is increasing, we are having multiple control deviations, and it is not good for the future. Now, these control gaps have become material and uh, they give us a risk exposure because we are not consciously working on this. We think that this is low risk or medium risk, haven't paid much attention to it. And as our business scale increases, these deviations have increased. And now these gaps have become material. Now, we are giving three options to management. Either we fix it now, or we redesign the controls, or we accept the risk. Now, the recommendation here is that we redesign the control. We try and understand why this control is failing. We redesign it. And because we understand that it was failing due to manual checks, we will implement system based checks. And we make it time bound. So your ask is that sign off the remediation timeline. We agree on a course of action and we sign off on the timeline that by when we are going to implement this. So in this way, again, you are able to drive decisions, you are able to drive actions, influence them, and also make the management, make people appreciate what you are trying to convey. Let's go to another example. CapEx proposal. So you have prepared a proposal for capital expenditure, um, and in that, typically, how would you prepare? You calculate what is the internal rate of return for this project, what is the NPV of this project, right? You debate the sensitivity. You've done the sensitivity analysis. If sales reduced by 1%, how much impact would be there? If cost increased by 1%, how much impact would be there? So those sensitivities are debated. If you present this IRR, NPV, and payback, these numbers, your assumptions could be challenged and the decision could be deferred that, okay, let's take it maybe in the next meeting and you can work up work a little bit more around this and maybe recalculate IRR, see whether the discount rate in NPV makes sense or not. Those kind of things can come back. But if we put it in story framework, then we might get the same proposal approved as well. So when you are setting the context, you are saying that capacity constraint is limiting growth. There is demand, but we don't have capacity, and hence our growth is, I mean, there's a glass ceiling that our growth has hit. Then tension. You are saying that the opportunity cost is exceeding the capex risk. The kind of profitability we are losing, the kind of volumes we are losing, future business we are losing, that far exceed the capex that we need to put in. Let's say if I'm saying that my payback is 9 months, so I would say that I mean we would earn um, this project will earn the cost that is going to be spent within this on this project within 1 year, or rather less than 1 year, and you would still get 3 months to make profit out of it, right? Then what all options? We say either you invest now, or you put it in, or you invest in phases, or you outsource this activity, right? And your recommendation is okay, we agree that it might not be reasonable or sensible to put all the money in, let's say we hit target one, then we increase the investment further. Once target two is hit, we increase it even further. And then your ask is, you present the phase one capex proposal that okay, out of total outlay of 100 crore in phase one, I am asking for 30 crore capex approval. Please approve it so that we can proceed. Now here also you are also demonstrating your customer focus. You are appreciating what your customers are thinking, what kind of risk they are perceiving, right? You are thinking from their perspective, what might be bothering them, and you are providing solutions to them. So uh, now you come across as a business partner to the management rather than somebody who just crunches the number and share. There was an interesting movie that I was seeing, and in that, before calculators in NASA, there were people who were doing the complex calculations, right? IBM was just setting up computers in NASA at that time. And though those people were really good at mathematics, they were essentially calculators, right? They were not appreciated that much. They were genius, but were not appreciated that much. But when you understand that what is the problem of your customer, right? They understood that maybe it's not feasible to spend so much money on people. Calculation would still take time. Computers are coming up. It makes sense that if we learn computers, then we might be more useful. So what they did, they learned the computer programming language. At that time, people who knew about computer programming language were limited. So those people learned computer programming language, presented themselves as the computer operators, because not many were available at that time, and these people got a pay raise. So this business acumen or customer centric mindset is equally important, and the story framework helps you achieve that. Identify patterns and constraints in data storytelling. So data quality is sufficient. Real issue is lying in missing element, right? You are not able to present what is your situation, what the tension is, and what is your ask. Then the narrative, you have not created a seam, and you've not created a narrative flow, which is why you might be losing your influence, and there are storytelling gaps which appear. And an effective story, it provides the architecture that is needed to solve problems beyond just mere data, right? You are not just sharing data. You are presenting a framework on how you think and how you solve problems. Okay, we are typically in love with data. So let's understand why data fails, right? So finance visibility versus influence. Uh, Finance report and data visibility that has significantly increased in organizations. Insights from finance are acknowledged by people, they are acknowledged by decision makers, but that lacks immediate action. Immediate action is not forced, or people don't feel the need to take immediate action basis that data, and hence data decision making is delayed. People have visibility. You have created, let's say, dashboard. People can see the data. Maybe you are sharing monthly insights, but still decisions are postponed. Your influence is less because they're not able to capture what is at stake, what the tension is, what is your ask, right? What your recommendations are, what are the outcomes. So those things are not clear to people. Hence, these things are happening. So you have visibility, but you need to do something more to have influence. What are the common pitfalls when we do data analytics? Intelligent analysis often fail. Why it fails? Because there is a line which we want to share the insights, right? Um, your explicit tension, that is missing. We are not sharing, and the decision ownership is not there. We are not co-partnering. We are just providing data, and then we have outsourced the decision making to the management. So this identity shift is needed. You must shift from being number reporter to decision architect, right? To influence the outcome effectively. So you should share the context first, right? Because executives prioritize understanding the context before addressing issue or decision. If you straight away jump onto the problem, this is what has happened, they would be confused. Why are you text? I don't fully understand the problem. Conflict second. Share the conflict, address it, and once the context is clear, share. Um, and choice before detail. So this is another important factor in decision making. So for every problem, uh, what people want is that you state the problem statement. So you have set the context, you've stated the problem statement, then uh, then you are giving choice. So we have choice A, B, C, which we was discussing. Like you are providing the alternatives or options, and then you go into detail. So what this happens if you think about your presentations in this manner, like uh, I have stated the problem, the three options, and then the details of those options. So if you create this hierarchy in your presentation, you're also able to manage time better. If I have, let's say, 2 hours to discuss, so I will go into the problem, then I will set context, then option one I'll discuss in detail, then option two I'll discuss in detail, option three I'll discuss in more detail. So that, because I have that kind of time, and then with every option I have again my recommendation, why I'm saying that, what is the background context, so I can do a detailed story with every option, right? And I can do a detailed analysis. If the time is cut back to 10 minutes, what generally people try and do is they try and cover everything and then they just increase their pace. That never helps. You will always run uh, over time. So what you should do is you should use again that framework. You share the context in a very simplified 1 or 2 sentence, that this is the context, this is the problem, these are the options we have, and this is what I recommend. This is what I recommend. And if you want to understand why I'm recommending this and why not others, maybe we can set up another meeting. And even within 1 or 2 minutes, that elevator pitch people call it, you are able to deliver. Why? Because you have clarity, you have thought clarity. You are not just prepared slides, right? You know what you want to communicate, and you can make it very concise and make it very elaborate depending on the time availability. So you should share choices before sharing the details, and you can adjust the size of detail depending upon the time availability and your audience. So your traditional finance deck, how it looks, it is slide driven. Your story is decision driven. Decision A, decision B, decision C. You're not going by slide. In traditional decks, data is first. In your deck, context would come first. In traditional, it is informative. It is FYI, just providing the information and providing the insights. In story, you to take an action, to take a certain action, which is why we have explained that these all alternatives we see, these are the good and bad things about the alternatives, what we recommend, why we recommend, right? So those things you are sharing because you want them to move towards the direction. And finally, you are also sharing your ask, your call to action, what you want from the management. So where all can you use this storyboarding technique? In your business reviews to analyze the performance and guide strategic decisions. You can use the story framework in margin and pricing strategy. So you should not be just saying that these are the high margin product, these are the low margin product. You should be sharing that what is driving my sales, why my margins are reducing, what what all options we have, what will happen if we take option A, what will happen if we take option B, right? What is your recommendation, what do you ask of the management, what timelines you want? So you should be sharing that. For capex approvals, you can provide a clear analysis of project benefit and risk. And in risk and audit conversation also, you can highlight potential issues and compliance factors effectively. Another interesting story I'll tell you, in one of the audit, um, it was very difficult to understand what has actually happened. It was very complex scenario, right? So what I did, I just created a story based on different interviews I had with different stakeholders. And then, because everyone had a different view on how things have happened and what they believe has happened, and it was very confusing. Uh, so, what I did, I just took a few assumptions, wrote down the series of events, and narrated to them as a story that this is what I feel has happened. And then I sent it over to them for their review. And wherever, because it was very difficult to connect the dots, I just put in certain assumptions and connected the dots and then created the entire chain of events. And people corrected certain things in it, that this is the understanding gap, and um, this is what needs to be changed with what they have shared. And then I collated everything and then corrected what I wanted to present. But if I had gone through the normal route of just documenting what everyone is saying rather than putting the chain of events in a story, in a sequence, it would have been very difficult to navigate through that situation. So you can always take some assumptions, create your hypothesis, and then test that hypothesis while sharing the caveat that this is based on certain assumptions because I could not understand it fully. And now you can have a look and share what if something I have missed. Uh, Even when people understand the risk, right? If you just say that in plain control and risk language, we just write that this is the risk there, they might not be able to appreciate it fully. If you explain to them in a storytelling format that what is the issue, what is the risk, what are the compliance factors, let's say there is one violation in which the penalty is that board members might go to jail. Now, even though in the new act, in the revised Companies Act, they have actually reduced those kind of compounding violations to a large extent, but if something like that happens, it is very critical rather than just mentioning. Maybe you can share one or two instances that in the case of XYZ company, this is the step that authority has taken. Now that will sensitize the people better because they would believe that this is not something that you are just saying, but this has actually happened with others and this is how it can impact them, right? Now, while storytelling in your presentation, what all disciplines you need to make sure? What all you need to be conscious of? In one slide, there should be only one insight, right? Because it should communicate one clear and focused insight so that audience is engaged. They have clarity what you are talking about. You use your charts to provide answers and clarity. And when we say charts, you don't just put anything and everything on the screen. Only what is relevant. Maybe I put a heat map. I want to talk about one specific risk. So the risk, which is a big red ball in high risk, high impact area. So that ball I circle and then I speak about that thing only. But I show to the management that in the universe of 20 different risks, this is the risk that matters the most, right? So that we capture. You can use call outs, you can use arrows, anything to highlight that particular piece, and then you talk only about that in your slide. Title, state, conclusion. People should not have to worry about what is written in the text, and they should be able to clearly gauge what you want to convey just by reading your titles, right? And use white space. Sometimes we just go into this mode wherein we want to put a lot of colors, fill the slide, make it fill it with data, but appreciate the use of white space because it provides a breather to the mind of the person who is reading, who is seeing what is there on the slide. Now, this white space makes the content absorbable, easier to comprehend, easier to understand. Okay, so try and use white space as much as you can on the slide. Also, remember the a typical human reads from whatever you put. It is in the way that whatever is critical, what you want to highlight, is at the top left, which is why this states that your title should state conclusion. Your title should be able to provide a very clear picture of what you want to say. Use less of details, and your charts and pictures, etc., should be able to clearly demonstrate what you want to say. We get too serious at times. Just try and mm, not be serious. I think that also helps a lot. So some scenarios where in finance we can use this framework. So in margin, if margin is compressed, you can explore deeper insights beyond basics to understand impact on profitability. If there is cost overrun, examine how cost overrun trade-offs have impacted cost overrun and have influenced project execution decision. Risk acceptance versus remediation. Understand the balance between can we accept the risk or do we need to remediate that in finance scenarios. So there are multiple situations in which you can basically use the storyboarding framework. Now, how this storyboarding framework will help you upgrade as a professional? Firstly, it will help faster decision making. It will help leadership and you as well to make decisions more quickly, more confidently in your role. It enhances your credibility. It boosts trust and respect among colleagues and clients. Now they see you as a partner rather than only somebody who is basically crunching the numbers. And you get a greater influence on the client, on the management, because this method empower professional to exert influence in workplace and in industry. The person who is telling story sells better than the person who is just sharing the data, right? If we another example, let me give you Tesla. When we talk about Tesla, there was a huge spike in its valuation before 2024 and 2023. There was and in 2024 as well, because there was a story to sell. EVs are the future, and Tesla is innovating. It is creating world class EVs, and hence it was trading at a PE multiple much higher than other auto giants, right? Then there is data. The sales, there was a time when both Toyota and Tesla had same valuation, but Tesla's revenue was equal to Toyota's profit. But Toyota was not telling the right story. Toyota was selling cars which are loved by families. People prefer to buy those cars, but valuations were not reflecting it. Why? Because the story that people wanted to hear was something different. So, if you want to exert influence, you need to be able to tell the right stories. So, the data or information that you are preparing, that is only the raw material. It represents the raw ore that contains valuable information, but it needs to be refined, it needs to be shaped. Story is a transformation. Your that is essentially transforming the raw material into meaningful insights. And the final product is the decision. So decisions is the outcome from refined data and storytelling, and your end objective is to influence that decision. It is not to create a fancy pivot table or a dashboard. Your objective is to influence a decision or to provide insights which are helpful in taking decisions, right? So story framework typically helps you translate complex data into clear and actionable business narratives. It improves the decision making by providing actionable finance insights. Adopting this approach leads to more impactful insights and improved business outcomes. Let me come back because I can take it back home with you. Also, I would highly recommend, if you want, you can take a screenshot also of this particular slide, because this can help you recall it at a later stage. Just a moment. Okay, so these are the elements of story: situation and stake, tension and truth, option and outcome, recommendation and risk, and your ask and next move. Okay, in presentation, there is a rule which is, firstly tell the audience what you are going to tell them, right? That is what you are going to say. So which we mention in the agenda and in this first slice. So this is what we are going to say. This I presented. Then say what you have to say. So I presented the rest of the thing. And then say what you have already said. So I am reiterating or summarizing what I have covered till now, so that it stays in your mind. So it is like, in during your student times, you might recall that what people used to do is, they do revisions, right? Before your exam, you do 4 revisions or 5 revisions. So it is essential for your audience to take away from your session. For that, you should be able to provide a summary of what you have covered till now, right? So this is the summary. So while crafting a story, you should set the situation, you should set the context, explain why the stakes are high, then introduce the element of tension and truth, which is backed by data, of course. Then share what all different options are there, what all outcomes can happen. Then share your recommendation. What is the position that you prefer? Why you think it is best? What all risks are there associated with it? But why we choose to accept that risk. And then finally, what is your ask? What is your next move? Right? What is the decision you need from management? And um, it is outlining the execution ownership for next steps. You are telling that who would be responsible for what as a next step. So leverage the story framework. I would highly encourage you that you think through at least one scenario today where you are using your traditional method and how you can replace it with story framework, and try this as soon as you can. Um, Using the story framework, narrate your story, present your data analytics to make the best out of it. Uh, Now we'll open the forum for questions and for comments. But before that, we'll take a 5 minute break. Let's reconnect at 1:30. Think through what all questions you have, and what do you want to discuss if you have any comments, and then we'll resume at 1:30 with the rest of the session with the Q&A round. Okay, I'm back, and now we can start with the Q&A. Or if you have any comments, please do feel free to put it in chat, and we can take it now. Any examples? Yes, yes, Manish. Okay, sure. You can think of the examples wherein you have used, or you could use, this storytelling or storyboarding framework, um, instead of your traditional normal presentation. Uh, just think of ways where you can use this. What impact does AI have? Okay, uh, and this is very interesting actually. Now, when you think about your presentation, and maybe sometimes we believe that we are not the creative one, right? We don't know how to create story. You can always put in your presentation or your data, and you can ask AI to create a story for you, right? Or create a compelling narrative for you, or think on those lines. So it is important that you ask, and you can use uh, any AI tool. It could be ChatGPT, it could be Grok, Copilot, whatever you want to use, but you need to basically leverage that. One example I can give you is this storyboarding, right? So I wanted to come up with an acronym for this session so that it is easier for the audience to recall everything. Now, what I did, I asked ChatGPT that this is what I have prepared, but I want you to suggest an acronym uh, to me. Now it gave me the acronym of storyboarding. It was lengthy. Then I asked it again that maybe convert it into story. So it's a shorter acronym, and then it is easier to recall. So I was able to find that framework using this, right? Um, when we say narrative, the word refers to false information. Now on the subject, what is its significance? Narrative is not false information. Narrative is what you want to convey, right? So what happens? Some words get a negative connotation to it, right? When we say a narrative, it is not essentially meaning spreading false information. Narrative means what you want to narrate, right? What is the narrative? What is the message basically you want to convey? So if you don't want to use the word narrative, you can think of it as message. So you want to deliver the right message, right? Audit cost overrun, define budget and approval system. Okay, so you are going to use the story boarding format, or this framework to present the budget and approval system, or in audit and cost overrun related scenarios. My point here is rather concentrating on post expense analysis. I have internal controls defined in place beforehand. Okay, so no matter, firstly, it's a good point that we should have controls in place to be able to firstly understand, and typically the controls for cost management are that you set up cost center specific budgets, right? Then you monitor it. But then typically budgets are set for the year, or maybe let's say they are set for the quarter, if you want to go into that much granular detail for every cost center. Now, if somebody exceeds, or finishes that entire budget within 1 month, then how would you make up for the next of the 2 months? Or if it is set for the year and it is entirely spent or not at all spent in the first 6 months, then how would you tackle that? So when we talk about cost, it's overrun. It's not just from the perspective that it has to exceed the budget. It could be that around timeline also. So we need to be very mindful of what all controls we are putting. And then irrespective, having controls is not a guarantee that something wrong will not happen. And it is always our job to analyze things. And also, in finance or in organizations, things are dynamic. Sometimes at the budgeting stage, we allocate budget to one thing, and at a later stage, what happens that things gets deprioritized, right? And something takes on a bigger role, or something else gets prioritized. Now, in that scenario, what somebody would do is then move that budget from thing A to thing B. So this can always happen. Having controls is great, monitoring them is great, but then you would still need to perform post expense analysis to be able to forecast for rest of the future, and also understand what we need to do to take a course correction. For matured organization, they have predetermined format of MIS. In that scenario, how one can present in the format as suggested. Okay, the MIS is basically a format. You have filled in the information and somebody would read that information. Okay. But at the same time, nobody is stopping you to add one or two slides in addition to that MIS, that okay, this is what typically you as a management want, but this is the analysis that I have done basis the MIS or some other data analytics, and this is what I have found, and then you structure it into the storyboarding format. So this happens in our organization also. And what we strive to do is we present what is there in MIS, and we send it as a pre-read. I mean, you can send it as a pre-read so that everybody can have a look. If somebody has questions, they can ask. Then, since everybody is aware of what data is there in MIS, it makes no sense that you again go ahead and present the same data in the meeting. There, you should have some insights which are coming from those MIS and you present in this framework. So you can always try and do that kind of analytics and present it accordingly. MIS need not be, presented the way it is prepared. Thank you for the informative session. In the given example solution provided, would like to add them as part of internal control to avoid them repeating in future, like for sales, define customer credit limit or have a robust ERP system which will ensure internal controls in place. Yes. So the solutions that um, I was mentioning, the different options. So that was not an exhaustive list. Definitely, we can propose that we can have better controls in place. Here also, because when we are talking about storytelling, we should also step in the shoes. Definitely, if your role is internal controls or audit or compliance, you would want to stay restricted to that role while giving recommendations. But let's say if you are the one who is preparing the MIS, or you are from FP&A or business planning, you're in a strategy team, and not even in a strategy team, if you want to share some insights, you need to be looking at things from a business mindset and from customer perspective also. If I say that these are the cases where credit limit has exceeded, now we need to have better control so that credit limit is not exceeded. And uh, and now this is a system-based control. No order would get uh, posted unless the available credit limit is there. Those ERP system-based controls are there. That is great. But you have only thought about things from the risk and control perspective. But how do you what value do you are you adding from a business perspective? Maybe you can say that um, maybe let's explore different things. Do we need to take bank guarantee from this customer? Do we need to, maybe we can ask for the business case from the customer, why should we increase their credit limit? Is this the right time to increase their credit limit? Does the credit period given to them make sense? Should it be reduced or should it be increased? Right? Uh, you can ask that, um, can we offer cash discounts to the customer because customer has good liquidity but is not paying because he's getting not getting any benefit if buying on cash, but his turnover inventory turnover cycle is quicker, so cash discounts to this particular customer makes more sense. So this kind of analysis will happen when you think beyond your existing structure of risks of controls, and also think about how you can add value to business, how you can um, make sure that we you are able to improve margin, or you are able to contribute or influence towards improving margin, improving sales, so on and so forth, in addition to our primary role of being a gatekeeper and in providing, ensuring that the controls are robust. But thank you for the comment and thank you for the question. um, any other comment or question or input we have? Okay. Any specific training courses? So there was one on Coursera which I saw some time back. It was around this storyboarding only. Uh, and on edX also, on Udemy also, you can find similar courses, even on LinkedIn Learn. And you can take any of those. I mean, they will typically tell you how to structure your presentation. And once you get interested in this topic, I mean, you can look for multiple other courses. Nothing specific that comes to my mind, but there are courses on storyboarding on Coursera and edX. These are free if you don't take the certificate. So you can always audit those courses if you don't want to spend on it. But typically they will tell you about that you should, like I said, use white space. Um, Also, what we do is sometimes we just write what we feel we want to write. Okay. Um, But then there's an old thing that I've heard sometime back that V1 version 1 of anything that you've created is made so that it could be scrapped. So it is just providing a platform to articulate your thoughts and put it on a piece of paper or put it on your computer, and then you start thinking on how you can present it better. And while polishing it for presentation, you also get different perspective on the same data, on the same insights as well, which is why you might have seen, uh, like if I tell you, when I was doing articleship, i I used to tell a problem to my senior, then he used to ask me 5 questions, and then he used to come up with a problem which was even bigger than that, which I was missing. So I was missing the big picture. But then while deliberating or while going into detail of that problem, he caught the bigger picture, which made the observation even more relevant. Similarly, when you do analysis, maybe you come across a minor deviation. Then you think through about that in detail, why it has happened. Then you might be able to, or maybe you start thinking from the perspective of the story framework, and then you might be able to understand that topic even better. And then when you have better understanding, you would be able to present it better. uh, Try and practice what you are going to present. That will also provide you a lot more clarity on how you are going to present it, right? These are the tips that you can use. While preparing presentation, you can always upload it into, if the data is not sensitive, or you can anonymize the data and you can upload it on AI tools, um, and you can ask it for feedback. Good thing about AI is it will share you a version. When you will ask you when you will ask it about feedback on that version, it will share what further needs to be refined, and then you can incorporate that feedback in that version itself. So uh, you can always ask AI that, consider yourself as a CEO or a CFO and review what I have shared and shared feedback. Or maybe you can ask that this is the story framework that I want to put this presentation into, and then suggest how we can do that and upload whatever you insights you have created. So you can leverage that as well. Any other input or comment or question? Yeah. Happy New Year, sir. Can we use Canva for storyboarding? Would it be too informal? Uh, yes, you can use Canva. Every organization has certain formats. Those are essentially created from branding perspective, where the organization name should appear, what all colors typically are being used in that organization. But within that framework, you can use Canva or otherwise also. Now, I also used to think that I can do storyboarding only if I have um, certain things available. But if I have some pictures available, then only storyboarding could be done. Or uh, if I need to put in certain charts, then only it could be done. But even with plain text, it is possible, right? So instead of putting my headers as introduction, then I am saying importance, objective, um, and risks. I can change the tone, right? That in itself will make it story. What we are going to discuss today. Why does it matter, right? So I'm saying the same thing. Oh, what is the objective? What is the importance? What all can go wrong? Instead of putting those complex words, I am just changing the tone, and it will not be informal. Then it relaxes everyone's mind, that cognitive load reduces, and people are more focused upon what you are saying. Don't put too much on the slide, just try and keep it minimalistic. um, like we said, one message uh, on one slide, and just try and keep it minimalistic and just highlight what you want to say. The key message should be there on your slide. You can have appendix, you can have annexure, wherein you provide all the details, and in the notes also you can have the details. The details should be coming from your mouth rather than uh, on the slide. Whatever truly matters could go on the slide, but whatever else is like a supporting, that you can move as a supporting slide or as an annexure, so that you can always refer that back if it is needed, but at the same time you are not cluttering the slide too much. So just try and convey in a very simplistic manner. It is okay to be to use your comedy, to use emotions in your presentations, right? So just try and think from different perspectives. How differently can I do it? And you can explore to you can try and practice that yourself as well. Oh, okay. Thank you, Manish. So, Bhavi ma'am, we have done questions and answers. Q&A round we've done with. Any comments from your end? Closing remark.
Yes, sir. We will definitely go for it, but I would like to wait for a minute or a two so that if there is any questions popping up on the chat box, we can have discussion.
Sure,
Otherwise,
for
we
sure,
can go ahead with our further things.
sure, ma'am,
So I would request you to just wait for a 2 minutes more.
for sure. I was not expecting so many questions on New Year's Eve. People are actually paying attention and devoting time. So this is really heartening to know that uh, our um, chartered accountants and CA students are really investing time in upskilling themselves uh, and utilizing
Actually,
the
what
time.
is basically we need to excel our skills in our daily lives in so many variety of things.
Yeah,
Yesterday when I was reading some of the newspapers, I found out that government is coming up with new AI tools for the betterment of India's youth. Sometimes there poses a question that whether these things will bring up a threat to the security systems of ours or what. But to certain extent, the AI which was being used in Operation Sindoor, the AI data. Basically, today we are talking about that storyboarding, the data collection. Government is having so much of data on PAN database, on Aadhaar database, but when it is linked, you come to know that there are so much of discrepancies among it. Government is going for SIR, there is lot of
Hmm.
data, but once we correlate this data to one another, we come to know what are the faults that are being there with this raw data. So today's topic, which you have really took up, returning the complex data, it's very important part because across the world there is so much of data. But once when we
Yeah,
correlate this, we build up so many things on it. It brings so much of new things coming up for our knowledge. And when we talk on these lines, we come to know that how important is for the youth, because our life has become a gadget one. In the last session of yours, we were discussing that on the morning we get up and we first take up is the mobile.
hmm,
So basically we are picking up the data. It's basically a storehouse of data. Once
yeah,
we open the phone, we go for Insta or we go for Facebooks or for X or whatever platforms we are using on the daily basis. So I think our life has become more mechanized and gadgetized instead of going without it. We cannot think further.
agreed, agreed, ma'am. And typically, when we say talk about storyboarding, uh, there was a time when Power BI was the new thing. So then people thought, okay, if we create dashboard, then we are done. I mean, with data,
Yes.
again, you are just presenting it in a different form. Instead of tables, you created charts.
Yeah.
Um, but essentially we have not done anything on the storyboarding aspect. So
Yes.
what insight are we deriving, whether it is actionable or not? um,
Yeah.
that is the most important factor, and those are the lines on which we should start thinking about as a
Yeah.
next step. I mean, now people have increased their comprehension about how they can use data visualization to comprehend it better, but then what
Yes.
insights we are deriving out from it, like you are saying that maybe using Aadhaar database, PAN database, you
Yeah.
have insights, you can put it on a dashboard. But what actionable insights we have derived, what action, what decision can we take basis that, like SIR we are government is doing.
Yes.
So whether those actionable insights are the ones which matters the most, that is what people care for. Even in organizations, I mean, management is not asking or expecting us as finance professionals, or our clients are not expecting that we crunch data for them. If we go ahead and provide insights and tell them what we should do, then I think that is the stage where we are able to add even more value.
Yeah, very true. And looking forward to all these things, even the government of India has come up with Gandhi AI. One of the
Yeah,
tool they are bringing up to bring this complex AI platform, helping this raw data to bring out with more facts and figures, making up much an important part.
yeah.
So, Gauravji, I think there are no more questions from the participants' side, and we can go up for the closing of this session. And it has been an honor to again bring you on board on such an important topic of what we discussed today, and very interesting, and the important topic of art of storyboarding, turning complex data into compelling business narrative. It was an honor to be a part of this webcast, on a webcast organized by the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee, ICAI. I personally thank on behalf of whole committee to CA Gaurav Goyalji, who had flawlessly taught us so many things, and he has poured his practical exposure, his insights on the data building up, and how this complex data can be used for the betterment of the youth, for the chartered accountants and all the professionals who are engaged daily with their lives in the data. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks and gratitude to all the people, participants who were here for 2 hours listening to us on the webcast, and increasing and excelling their knowledge and skills on this part. I would like to thank and give a round word of applause to everyone who was there, and even to the Professional Enrichment Committee, ICAI, extends the thank to Dr. Sambit Kumar Sarji, who has been hosting this webcast, their technical team, and all those people without whom this webcast could not be a good success. I thank you all, everyone, for being present here, waiting to see you all in our next webcast series coming up soon, as you have all the details on the board. Thank you, everyone, for making this webcast a grand success. Once upon, thank you to Gaurav sir for bringing up such a beautiful topic in a very light mode. Thanking you all, wishing you all a very happy new year. Once again, signing off. See you, Bhavi Thakkar. Have a nice day. Good day to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Yes, yes. Thank you.